Weird. Okay. Welcome. I am using the incredibly advanced technique of using Microsoft Paint to go through the standard UI. It's frustrating. For some reason it won't let me do less than 100 or 50, but such are the limitations of our advanced technology. Just go through the UI piece by piece, trying to help out newer players figure out what is all this information that's being thrown at my face. So this is score. Oh, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. This is the scoreboard. It just lets you know who's winning. It lets you know how much time is left in the match. Green is your team, red's the other. This is a team deathmatch on the Lost Shipyards map. So it will have just 2 numbers. On domination matches, it will have 3. This is more important. This sort of lets you know how to press to be in team death matches. On domination matches, it's very important strategically because it lets you know which satellites you own, which satellites you don't, and which ones are under threat. There'll be little triangles at the top. If they're green and solid, you own them. If they're green and sort of tilted on their side and flashing, that means that the enemy is taking them. Or there's an enemy ship in range and there are 3 dots around them. It'll look kind of like this. That means there's an enemy satellite, and the dots all mean how many defensive turrets it has. As defensive turrets are destroyed, dots will disappear, and eventually you'll be able to take it. So if you see one with no dots, it means you can go take it. That's the scoreboard. Up here is one of the most important elements. It is the ship heads-up display. If you watch any of my videos, you will see how often I refer to it. It is a wonderful source of information. Your name will appear here, so if you see you in red, if they have you targeted, you want to run. You want to run away. Run like the wind. Up here it'll be their name. It'll let you know, just by the silhouette, you should eventually be able to sort of learn what type of ship it is, and sort of how you should approach it, what you can do, whether or not you should be terrified of it. That name will also help you with that. You'll quickly learn sort of who can blow you up and who can't. This is their shield arcs. This is their health. And yeah, it'll also, it has a little 3D picture of them here. It'll pop up, and so you'll be able to tell where they're facing. You know, if you can see their face, that's also another good idea to run. Sometimes people will do sneaky things, and they'll be shooting at you without actually having you targeted. So it's always good to check just with your eyeballs and see where they're facing. You can move these elements around. Honestly, this is so important that on my standard UI I've moved it down to here, but but we're not going to do that right now because we're just walking through the regular. So sorry it doesn't all fit on the same thing. I'm just spastically scrolling up and down, but we're on to the stuff on the bottom now. This is your weapon energy. It's yellow. You'll notice that that matches the same yellow. Huh, what a coincidence. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is how much power you have to shoot your lasers. You know, pew, 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 pew. Pew, pew, pew. The more you shoot lasers, the less of this you'll have. The longer you wait after you've shot lasers, the more of it you'll have. It's pretty straightforward. It just lets you know if it's low down here, then you will not be able to shoot lasers anymore, and you'll be sad. Over here is your engine. This is honestly your most important resource. Lasers, you know, doesn't kill you, but if you get into a bad situation, a sticky area when you're low on engines, you've made a bad decision. You should always be watching it, making sure that you're high enough, and if you're getting low when you're in a bad situation, use the rest of it to boost out instead of boosting after somebody. It's very common that people will be able to lure you way out into their territory, and you'll be left with no engine, and you'll have nowhere to go, and you'll be left sort of floundering around helplessly. If you're very new, you can spend this by pressing spacebar or by using your movement abilities, but we'll talk about those a little bit later. This is your engine speed readout bar thing, which lets you know how fast you're going. You'll notice that there's actually 2 components to it. There's this line, which lets you know where you want it to be. So if I press spacebar, this little thing will go up to here, and these bars will take time to slowly fill up. It's pretty fast actually when you're boosting, but let's say that I hit the X key to stop. And this will go to here. These will slowly tick away, one by one, down, until it reaches stop. which means that you can play tricks where if you want to slow down quickly to chase somebody, you can tap X it'll go here, but then as long as you boost, by the time it only gets down to there, you'll have just slowed yourself down for a quicker turning radius without actually facing the disadvantages of coming to a full stop. So this is pretty useful to know just how fast you're going at the moment. You know, if you're at a full stop, it's useful to know that, you know, to see how long it's going to take you to get back up to here, you know, all that sort of stuff. These are your weapon arcs. This is your secondary weapon arc. If you have a lock-on missile, I have rocket pods in this guy, so it's not the hugest deal, but if you have a lock-on missile and you're trying to lock them on, they need to stay within this circle. It'll be different sizes for all different kinds of rockets. There are crew member abilities that can make the circle bigger, but that's your secondary weapons arc. If you're holding down the left mouse button to lock onto somebody and their ship is moving, it pops out, your lock will be broken. This bigger one is your lasers arc and your movement arc. You can only move the cursor within this. If your mouse is over here, the cursor will still stay here, and that's as far as your lasers can go. Bear in mind that even though you technically can be hitting somebody who's over here, you'll not really be able to, since there are tracking penalties. The further away this is, your accuracy goes down. You'll be less and less able to hit them, even if your physical aim is perfect, even if your cursor is right on top of them. More shots will miss. They'll take less damage inexplicably because of the game's, you know, decisions about accuracy and evasion that are out of your control. So generally, I would wait until, you know, if you move the cursor over here, your ship will also move to match it. I would wait until you're sort of straight on them before you start firing, unless you're really desperate just to get a few shots off, in which case, you know, shoot away. But be careful. A lot of times people will waste all of this valuable blaster energy taking shots they can't hit, and then when they have a clear shot they can hit, they're all out. One thing that can, I guess we'll go sequentially. So this are your shields and your health indicator. Each arc will go yellow, and then orange, and then red, and then disappear based on how much damage you're taking. They're separated into front and back, so even though you've gone head-to-head with somebody that completely wiped out your front shield, if you run away and they're shooting at your butt, they will be hitting your back shield. And so even though they've done all the work of taking down your shields, they still will not be able to actually damage your hull. It's good to play games with that. It can be a little challenging and confusing, but generally speaking, what the use of this is if things start changing colors down here, hit R, so you know if you hit R, it immediately targets the person who's targeting you. Look at them. If they are threatening, then immediately start taking evasive action. Start moving side to side. You know, use your abilities. Get out of there, because this lets you know, basically whether or not to panic. If this turns to, again, the ship itself will change colors to let you know how much hull you have. First they have to eat through your shields, and then they eat through your hull. Your shields regenerate. Your hull does not, unless you are near a repair drone or something else that heals you. Yeah, again, this is important largely due to the fact that it lets you know when you need to panic. So this little box here is one of the most complicated but important parts of Galactic Starfighter. It will be very familiar to you if you've ever played X-Wing or TIE Fighter, or X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, or X-Men, any of those games. Like I said, you will notice that this color matches this color matches this color, and this color does not match this color, but it represents shields. These are controlled by default by F1, 2, 3, and 4. F1 will make this big and these little. F2 will make this big and these little. And F3 will make this big and these little. Each of them represents how much of your sort of ship's reactor is being used for each of these functions. So let's say, as the start of the match, typically what I do very first thing is I press F3 to make this big and these little, because I'm not shooting anybody right now. There's not even anybody visible. We'll talk about the map in a little bit. Not any bad guys visible, so I do not need my blaster power. They're obviously not hitting me, so I do not need my shield power, but I need to get to them so I can shoot them. So I need my engine power. Especially at the beginning of a domination match, where basically the first 30 seconds of a domination match are a race to see who gets to the satellites first. If you get to one and cap it, you basically just have to not die and you've won the game if you have 2 of them. So very important to understand when to use engine. I honestly am in F3 mode the vast majority of the time, just since I play a very mobile game. And most people who are successful play very mobile games, since not getting hit is the true sign of excellence. If you are unloading into somebody who's pretty stationary, like when I'm on an attack run against a bomber, and I'm going to run out of blaster power before he runs out of health, and he's not going to necessarily be able to turn and hit me, or I'm behind him just unloading, he's not going to be able to get away from me, I don't really need to worry about my engine to boost after him. I will hit F1 to give myself a bunch of laser power. And if I am that bomber, desperately trying to not die to the scout on my butt that I'm trying to twirl around the satellite, especially if I'm doing my job, I don't want to boost away from the satellite, and besides, I don't really have enough engine power as a bomber to do that anyway. And this is if I was playing a bomber. Right now this is obviously a scout, just to avoid any confusion. But I would want to go with shields so that my shields regenerate. And hopefully I can avoid enough of his shots for my shields to regenerate so he can't kill me. So yeah, engine, blaster, and shield regeneration, super duper important. When in doubt, just hit F3. It will always be good. You should be boosting all the time, everywhere. When you press spacebar, you get boosts, and you go fast. That's good. Be like Sonic. Continuing, we're only 3 to go. Here we have your abilities. These differ widely based on the ship. This is a co-pilot ability. Every ship has their choice of every co-pilot ability based on what crew members you have unlocked. You can take your pick. I'm flying it totally stock, like I said in previous videos, so I didn't even change it from in your sights, which is not great. Ideally, I switched that to wingman or running interference. There are a few other niche ones that can be good. But these are available, interchangeably to every ship. The rest of these are chosen in your ship loadouts. This one generally will be systems. It's the more wildcardy one. It could be anything. This will always be something to do with shields. There are a variety of different shield buttons, but 2 will almost always be something defensive to the shields. 3 will always be something to do with engines. In most cases, it's a pre-programmed routine, like this shoots me forward in a barrel roll. That's the one I've chosen for this guy. Some ships have abilities that don't actually send you through a pre-programmed routine, although those are usually the best because they break the routines do break missile locks, which can be very valuable defensively. So you want to use that. This guy lets you know my right mouse button is going to shoot my lasers that have infinite ammo. My left mouse button is going to shoot rocket pods that have not infinite ammo. Pretty straightforward. This is most useful for the bits of information of how much ammo you have left, and especially if you're on a type of ship that switches guns, like the Type 1 Strike Fighter or Type 1 gunship. It's nice to know without having to charge up a shot or shoot something which gun you have equipped at the moment, because you can hot swap back and forth between them with the one button on those ships. You can just glance at it to know. It takes a little bit of getting used to which stupid little icon it is, but you can just glance at it to know what you got going on. Finally, but not last, but definitely not least, I'm going to zoom way in for this. The map. The map, much like Dora the Explorer, the map is a great friend. This big triangle with the rings coming off it, that's me. You want to know where you are on this map at all times. Generally, I like to sort of think about the map divided down the middle like this, where this is them. Scary. And we're just gonna get a nice little green one. Us! Yay! Especially when you're new, you want to be on this side of the map. You don't necessarily want to be out in these areas. These are kind of scary because it's just open space. Dodging around these asteroids is generally safe. These asteroids are generally safe. If you find yourself hitting tab and you're chasing a guy and you look down and your little green triangle's over here, you're going to want to get out. Depending on context, if things are going really well for your team, if you're just kicking their butts, they can't do anything against you, it's fine to chase. Just, a lot of those will just evolve to everybody sitting out here in front of their stupid ships just killing them over and over, and sometimes things go really, really badly, and the only place you'll be able to go is around here before you're instantly exploded by a gunship shooting at you. I have beautiful drawings. But the map is your primary source of knowing where you are. It's your primary source of spatial awareness. It's super, super useful. On Team Deathmatch, it also lets you know where the power-ups are, so you can take a chance on flying over near one and seeing if it's a damage overcharge or something you need. On this map, the yellow ones, the blaster overcharges, do recharge your missiles too, so as a rocket pod using character, it's very valuable to be able to find these little things. And finally, there are none on the map right now because I took this screenshot right at the beginning of a game, but there will be red triangles for the enemy. So generally, you can just use your intuition when you're looking at the map. You'll get used to things as time goes on, but you know, if a bunch of green arrows are all up in here, there's one red arrow over here and he's all alone, and then there are like 50 red arrows over here, you're probably going to want to go and detect this guy. You're not going to want to charge in to 50 red arrows. Again, even if you're up in space that you think is safe and you see yourself surrounded by red arrows, don't even hit tab, don't even hit R, don't even try to target people and figure out what's going on. Just get out of there. Just pop F3, maybe hit one of your engine skills, just get going. Because that's not someplace you want to be. I've seen a lot of people who just, they hit tab, they see the enemy, they fly towards the enemy, and they shoot at them until they die, which is, not the most effective way of playing. You're definitely going to want to be constantly using this map. Oftentimes, helpful teammates, if you have helpful teammates, which is kind of rare, but we'll call out various things. Like sometimes a bomber will say, repairs at B3, and they're using these things, so like B3 is B3. It's pretty obvious if you ever used a map before. But yeah, if somebody cryptically says, like, there's a damage overcharge at C2 if you want it, they mean that this little thing on the map is actually damage overcharge, so if you want it, you can go and take it. How nice of them they would be if they told you that instead of taking it. How selfless of them. So yeah, how selfless of you, sitting through a very long time of me talking at a Microsoft Paint picture. Hopefully, though, this has helped somebody somewhere at some point. But yeah, introduction to the UI elements of Galactic Starfighter.